If you look at this food, does it look edible?
Yes.
Does it look like you want to eat it?
Yes.
Would you throw it away? No. So what we're trying to do here is teach you how to be less picky with your food. If you go home and you have random stuff in your fridge, make a stir fry, make a salad, make a soup, and then you eat it, because the food waste is happening at home and at the store. So if you can help that in any step of the way, we like it. We like when you eat and we like when you love each other. So if you have time, sit down and eat with us. Otherwise, you can start eating. And that's it. And thank you everyone for coming out today. We love you.
Yeah.
So I'm Corey. I am a co-coordinator of the Club People's Republic of Delicious, which is situated on the University of Ottawa campus. When you think about food, people often just think about, oh, I'm going to go to the grocery store, I'm going to go out to a restaurant, and then I'm just going to eat the food. However, the part of the conversation that is missing is food waste. So when people think of food waste, they think, oh, restaurants and grocery stores are the ones throwing out the food the most. However, 47% of food waste happens in the household. So that means people like me and like you are throwing out food more than restaurants, grocery stores, farmers, and people along the transportation line. So 53% is happening in all those realms, but 47% is actually happening at the household, which is a huge, huge, huge issue. We are very, very picky as consumers because the grocery stores set up these beautiful displays of fruits and vegetables that are perfect. They're gleaming, there's not a speck wrong with them. However, when they come home and time passes, they are not as beautiful. And when we take them out of the fridge, we see and we say, oh, it has a speck on it, I can't eat it, throw the whole thing out. PRD, the People's Republic of Delicious, collects food from a grocery store, Urban Spice, on Bank Street in Ottawa. So how it works is PRD is strictly volunteers. So it's people that are just dedicated about food and community. So we get together, we have some volunteers that go at 8 a.m. to Urban Spice on Bank Street, and they pick up whatever food is being donated to us that day. So the people that are working there, they fill the boxes with whatever stuff that they think is not sellable or is starting to look funny or doesn't have value to them anymore. It is not going to make them money. So instead of them throwing out, they donate it to us, and we're very grateful for that. And then the volunteers bring it to campus. We weigh the food because we do like to keep statistics. How much food are we diverting from the landfill with this one round? And usually we get anywhere between 30 to 80 pounds of food a week from one grocery store, which is mind-blowing within itself. And then we have the volunteers, we all set up the food on our blanket, which has our motto, which is Keep Campus Delicious. And so we set up the food there, and we look at it, and we think, that's beautiful food, what are we going to make with it? Because some of the stuff we get is very unique. There's, fruits and vegetables that are from many different countries, and, that we have no idea what it is. So we set it up, and then people that's where the magic happens. People just come together, and they come into little teams, and they say, oh, well, we're going to make an applesauce here, or we're going to make a stir fry here, and, oh, does anyone know how to do this, or what spices would go? And that's, where community comes in. So we're starting to make food out of this garbage, right? It's dumpster food. It's food that would have gone to the dumpster, to the landfill. So PRD, people just astound me. And then by around 11:30, so we cook for about 2 hours. We're just nonstop. We're chopping and dicing, and then by around 11:15, 11:20, we put a sign out so that people walking by, when they're smelling the food, they know that they can come get it. So the food says who we are and that there's a free vegan lunch being served. Bring your Tupperware.
So reducing food waste is super important to me, and I love the environmental goals and aspect of PRD, but when it comes down to it, I think the most important thing is building community around food. Food is so important to our social lives and everything, and I think that the sense of family we get at PRD is really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's bringing everyone together for a really great cause. People who are passionate about sustainability and keeping the planet going, and you get to enjoy that with really good people and with really good food, and that's just what makes it awesome.
Hey, hi, I love
with PRD because it's a really great initiative to take. A lot of food is wasted in the grocery store, like an incredible amount, and all this food that we're making, it would have been thrown out. Like, it's from a grocery store, they're gonna get rid of it, and we're all here enjoying ourselves with someone else's garbage, and we're gonna eat it afterwards, and I think it's just amazing.
In terms of spreading the message of reducing food waste, of course, giving people food seems to be a great way to kind of entice them into it, you know? Like, oh, look at all this food. Have you heard about food waste? Did you know this was going to be food waste? I don't know, it's such an easy way to tell people, right? Like, this delicious salad you're eating could have ended in a dumpster, but instead is going in your belly. How nice. Again, I think that some people might feel powerless if they see like this huge corporations kind of fighting against them, but it's like the small guys at the bottom that just like start the movement, and that's how everything starts up, you know? If a lot of people are doing small things, then eventually like at least the culture behind food waste might change, and then you're voting with your dollar, and then the politicians see that, and then the laws can change, you know? It's like this process that you go through.
Alors ce qui m'a fait venir ici, c'est que je rencontre des gens et que aussi on fait des économies de la nourriture, on apprend comment économiser nos argent et tout. C'était la bonne bouffe.
Ce qui m'a fait venir ici, c'était un événement Facebook et j'ai trouvé ça intéressant pour essayer de voir comment gérer la nourriture. Quand on est étudiant, on en jette assez souvent, donc je sais pas, il y avait une super bonne ambiance, les gens sont vraiment motivés pour qu'on fasse des bonnes choses avec notre nourriture et simplement qu'on partage. Donc ouais, venez avec plaisir.
Donc bonjour, je participe à People's Republic of Delicious, donc PRD, pour la simple et bonne raison qu'en fait, je crois que le gaspillage alimentaire, on peut y remédier, notamment avec des initiatives communautaires, comme par exemple la cuisine qu'on fait en ce moment, avec des bénévoles, puis la nourriture qui nous est donnée. Donc je pense que c'est important juste pour qu'on puisse partager le bon mot, puis qu'on puisse prendre des bonnes habitudes tous ensemble, de ne pas gaspiller la nourriture aux enfants.
So would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, so my name is Valerie Loulou. I'm the founder of New Grocery, which is Ottawa's first zero-waste grocery store. 2 years ago I started adopting a zero-waste lifestyle after reading a book about it. And one of the aspects of the zero-waste lifestyle, it's not everything, but one of the aspects is to change the way you do your grocery shopping and to stay away from any single-use packaging. So what you do is you find bulk stores, you come to the store with your own containers, you fill them up, and this way you completely avoid packaging waste, which in a traditional grocery run is probably half of your garbage would be packaging waste, or sometimes even more. Personally, I've always been very cognizant about food waste. I grew up in Europe and my family was always quite frugal, and so we never throw away anything, and we always process everything we have. But I noticed that actually when you buy in bulk, you automatically reduce your food waste, because you buy the quantities that you really need and not the quantities that are pre-packaged for you. So even without purposely doing it, you end up wasting much less food. Statistics say that Canadian households waste 30% of the food they buy. I don't know of any zero waster who would waste 30% of the food they buy. It's based on 5 principles that are called the 5 R's. You know, when we think about waste, we think maybe about 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. That's what we've been taught. But there's actually 5 R's. The first one, which is the most important one, is refuse. So you refuse the things that you do not need. And you realize that there are a lot of things that we do not need to be happy. So it's really a lifestyle of voluntary simplicity, where you sort of really analyze what makes me happy, and if it doesn't make me happy, why am I buying it? You know. Then it's the reduce. The reduce actually applies very well to fashion. Actually, you know, yes, I do need clothing. Do I need a full walk-in closet of it? No, I don't. So I reduce what I don't need. Then it's applying the reusing concept. So as I said previously, you stay away from single use. So we've really declared with our store even and our mission and the way we communicate, we've declared a war on single use. single-use coffee cups, single-use styrofoam trays, packagings, take-out containers, straws, everything that you use once and you discard. And it starts with a typical plastic bag that you get at the grocery store, so that would be really the number one candidate. These things, you just eliminate them from your life and you replace them with reusable alternatives. And then number 4 would be the recycling. And as you can see, recycling really comes just in 4th place. So it's what you do once you've really exhausted all the 3 others, and you can actually reduce a lot of waste with the 3 others. I would say it's 90% of your waste reduction would come from the 3 others. And then you recycle only what you cannot refuse, reduce, or reuse. You know, that's when recycling comes into play. And you also have to understand what recycling actually is. You know, there's a lot of misconception, for example, about plastic, thinking that, well, if I buy plastic and I put it in the blue bin, it's going to be recycled, so everything's okay. And we need to educate the public about recycled plastic. Plastic first, all the plastic that you throw into your bin is not actually being recycled, because the market, the demand for used plastics is actually very small. You know, so it's really understanding what recycling actually means, and there are very few materials who are great candidates for recycling. I mean, it's basically glass and metals are great candidates for recycling, because you can really recycle them over and over again without any loss in quality. And the last thing is rot, so it would be compost. So it's really using your compost bin, and anything that is organic waste, do not send it to landfill, because we know it's a major source of methane emissions when you have organic waste stuck in a landfill. So send it to the compost, and make sure that it biodegrades and doesn't create any emissions. You apply these principles to food, absolutely. I mean, you refuse the food that you do not need, so that's the advantage of buying in bulk, is that you're not going to buy a kilogram. If you're alone at home and you know it's going to go bad, so you're just going to buy the 3 or 4 apples that you actually need. You know, so you refuse what you not need. So that's the first way to reduce food waste. You refuse, you reduce, so if there's something that you eat a little less of it, because maybe it's not necessary to eat that much, refuse, reduce, you reuse, so that would typically be repurposing, as you said. So it would be freezing things before they get bad, or using them for juicing. If you have vegetables that become a little tired, you know, you juice them, you process them, you can them, so this way you really avoid food waste. And well, recycling with food doesn't really work. It would be the repurposing, right?
So right now we're just going ahead and filling up the Thompson raisins to fill up from what we have here, which is the leftovers essentially from the previous box. So what we do is we always fill up with the fresh box, and then to make sure that our customers are always have a well-presented store essentially. So basically my job throughout the day is to make sure that we're always topped up, presented, and I'll be doing the same thing for basically everything we have in the store. So this is one of our, I would say, most unique features for this store, for any bulk store realistically, because we have a self-serve cleaning product wall. So we have everything from shampoo and conditioner to liquid dish soap, as well as other bulk cleaning products like white vinegar. And we're one of the only stores, I would say, and the only store I've ever known to have white vinegar on bulk that you serve for yourself. So there's no need to buy those big plastic jugs anymore. You can bring in your own reusable container and fill it up as much or as little as you like.
Some of the personal favorites enjoyed by vegetarians and vegans alike are the raw vegan cheeses. So we have the garlic and fine herb from Fromagerie Zangari. This is one of the more popular ones. And then another local company that we're lucky enough to have in bulk is Marcello. They do pestos, We have a sun-dried tomato as well as a vegan, the lavage and hemp, so the lavage plant, and roasted red pepper, and Genoese, which is the traditional. We have vegan cream cheese and a variety of items from Soyery, which we get on Wednesdays.
Why are they 50% off today?
They are 50% off because they do have a best buy date, so we want to respect their, the need, because we do get them in fresh. So it's not necessarily that they would spoil per se. It's just the taste is going to be best when it comes in fresh on Wednesdays. So yeah, and we do generally sell out of them, so it's nice.
Personally, I just think there's a very large disconnect between people and the process that goes into food, because it's not actually this beautiful utopia where you walk into a grocery store and anything you need is there. We are very, very fortunate as a culture to be able to do that, but even a lot of people in our own given communities can't do that. Like, food insecurity is a striking issue, and PRD can kind of help with that as well. Like, we have no idea who's coming in for our food, and we have a very inclusive environment that is no barriers. You come in, we don't ask questions, we don't ask anything, who you are, what you're doing. We just say, do you want to eat? Here's a Tupperware, fill it up. If you want to join us and sit down and eat and join the community, go for it. And that's the thing. There's enough food being produced in the world that can feed the population of the world 3 times over.
I did not realize it was
3 times over. We have enough food. There is a surplus. And then you have all this food insecurity, or people that are not even having access to food at all. And it's like, where's the disconnect? Right? So it's within our power to be able to say, okay, if I have food and I have this luxury to have food, how can I help others, have access to that, or be at the same level that I'm at? So if that's, going into your own fridge and whatever's going to go bad, sharing it with someone, or making a meal and bringing it to a neighbor, like, there's just little steps that you can do to minimize your negative impact with food. Growing up, my family used food banks. Like, it was a single mom and my brother and myself, and it's like, in order for us to have adequate food, as much as a food bank could give us, we had to go there. We had to seek out other sources because the price of groceries was far too high. And that was, 10-15 years ago, and I can for sure say that the price of groceries has only increased exponentially with all the inputs that are going into it. So, people say, oh, just go to the grocery store. That is not accessible for a good chunk of the population. And food insecurity is an individual's incapacity to access proper, nutritious, adequate food, and preferably culturally appropriate. And I don't think it's the individual's fault. Why is a thing that is a basic human need, such as food, inaccessible? And it's like with the Canadian Food Guide, like, how are you getting 4 to 5 sources of protein in fruits and vegetables? And people are like, I'm lucky if I get to eat an apple a week. And some food banks are only open once a month. So people are going in with their fingers crossed, thinking, oh, I hope today's a good day, And it is like, it's a process. People have to prove that they live in a certain area, and, it's a process. And there is still bureaucracy just to get people food. In Ottawa, I know that there are food rescuing groups and there's food clubs that are going on, and that's great. But we do need more. Like, there is just, with the food waste that's going on and the people that are hungry, there is a need for, just this sector to be happening, right? And it's unfortunate that groups do need to be the ones doing that, instead of just having this direct chain between food banks and grocery stores. Oh, you can't sell that anymore? Sure, we'll give it to you, right? But there's, logistic issues.
I do radio in Peterborough. Okay, nice. I've been doing a show for like 9 years. Oh, what? Here, Jenna. It's a huge part of my joy in life.
Yeah.
Thank you to whoever made this. This is great.
So, the Garden Spot is a project on paper of a group called the Carleton Food Collective, which has existed for 15 years as a group that seeks to challenge the monopoly of the food sellers at Carleton University. And so we provide, instead of charging people for food, we offer it for free. And we source our ingredients from local donors and through a budget that we have that all Carleton students pay into. Some of us are not Carleton students. Some of us love the idea and want to contribute, want to change the food culture in the city, reduce food waste. And this is one of the main hubs that's existed in the city for that. It's been a tough time to keep it organized for 15 years, but this space is super valuable. It's a full industrial kitchen and has a organizing space and a basement for storage, a backyard garden as well. If you want to take a look at the garden,
definitely.
take a look. So this is the garden in the winter. As you can tell by the state of maintenance, nobody took out the tomato trellises. So we're working on our project. We're kind of like in a rebirth mode right now.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Megan. I am a community organizer and activist in Ottawa, and my passion is food security and bringing food for free to the masses.
How long have you been involved in the Garden Spot?
Well, it happened very randomly. I met Afnan through my last job where I was the produce manager at a health food store, and he got me involved here because I was already helping divert waste from the grocery store to the G-Spot. And when I got involved here, I was like, oh my god, this is exactly what I love doing, and now it's taken over my entire life. I am making a panko apple crisp. It's gluten-free and vegan. And I found it on the internet by inputting all the weird food that we were given for free and making it generate a recipe for me.
There's a website that does that.
Yeah. So
cool.
it just like scoured the internet for something that had the exact ingredients, and I found this awesome recipe.
So this is all food that was donated?
Yeah, all of it was donated. I think all of the apples came from Urban Spice. And then the panko, I'm not sure. They've been here for like 6 months. And we did have to buy the margarine though. That was the one thing. So we use our budget sometimes to buy food, and that's what we use it for, is like things you might not find in a donation.
So my name is Afnan. I am a local organizer and organizing in the Ottawa leftist community for 3 years now. Most of my work is revolved around food waste and food waste collection, food waste redistribution as a way to empower people on the ground, organizers, and the general marginalized communities. So the Garden Spot was a project started some 15 years ago by students on campus to provide a free source of food to low-income and poorer students at Carleton. And it grew to become a hub of the Ottawa leftist community, but it went through several iterations, several generations, often like many grassroots projects. The building itself includes a big commercial kitchen, living room space, really a lot of fridge storage space, and a really enormous garden for the summer. It is off campus, and it's been a challenge for a lot of the organizing because the food has to be transported for every food giveaway or food serving. Besides that, it's used as a organizing or event space for the community at large, and as a source of food as well. At several points during its life, it functioned as like an effective food bank for anybody that came through, and also as a way to connect people to the larger community of the events that are going around.
Can you talk about some of the positive things you've seen the Garden Spot bring to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So at one point I hosted yoga classes here and a Sunday free community meal. We used to pick up from Whole Foods, and this is when it was like an effective food bank. On Sundays would be the food giveaway days. We would collect from the Urban Spice and from Whole Foods a bunch of really high quality, natural, preserved grocery products and fresh produce. People would just come, eat, chill, relax, chat, and enjoy in the abundance. It was a really important and strong event for me to integrate myself in the community. It's how I felt that I had a place here.
Because the community aspect is important.
It's fundamental. We're mostly made up of leftists, people that are big on communalism and sharing, idea sharing, resource sharing, and this place is a source of abundance, and it's that abundance that can bring people together to then enact social change. And that's something we're huge on, social change. It hasn't gotten to that point yet, but we've been able to influence our community at large, or the city at large, to promote better social housing or better food access, but that's something we are absolutely capable of delivering if we can get to that point. So on an average serving on campus, we'll serve around 50 people. For the people that volunteer, right now we have, say, 15 active volunteers. At our workshops, you get 15 to 30 people per workshop. We have movie screenings. Almost every single event here will involve food. So it's a big number every single time.
So my first-hand experience with food waste was when I worked at a grocery store, and I remember I had the early morning shift, so I'd come in after they cleaned the store and everything and picked up all the food that didn't look so nice anymore. So like the bananas that were going bad, the cakes that were past their expiry date. And I remember walking to my office every day and just seeing these lineups of carts of food, and I couldn't take them. I'd be fired if I took them, which was just shocking to me. And like I knew something had to be done about it. I just didn't know what I can do personally about it. It's a very systemic thing, and I feel like people might not feel like they're powerful enough to conquer like this big challenge, but it's the small things that we do that really make the difference. When I personally asked my manager if I could take the groceries, or if they're going somewhere, they just went into the trash compactor, which was terrifying. I just hated that. But there are laws that do say that if grocery stores donate their food, they're not liable or anything. They could just give it away, which confused me, of course. Like, you have all this food, why don't you do something useful with it instead of just throwing it out where it's gonna cause greenhouse gases anyways. I don't understand why there can't be an infrastructure set up so that the waste can be diverted. And it shouldn't be waste anyways, it should be food that's diverted to other people. I do understand that grocery stores might have an issue with setting up the infrastructure to donate, and there need to be other organizations that help them to do that. But again, PRD is starting that in terms of on campus and with the more local grocery stores. As we grow bigger, hopefully we can sort of expand.
Loving Spoonful has been around for 10 years and is Kingston's healthy food agency. What we do kind of spans 3 areas: food access, food skills, and community engagement. In the food access area, the fresh food delivery program was actually the pillar we were founded on. Our first staff person ran the organization out of her car and drove around to grocery stores to pick up their surplus. And that's basically still what the program looks like today, except it's grown to be 138,000 pounds in the past year, delivered by more than 60 different volunteer drivers who are doing 30 to 50 routes a week. And each route looks like picking up from grocery stores, restaurants, and then farmers and gardeners in the summer as well through our market booths where we receive donations, and then delivering directly to social service agencies. So that's hot meal programs, shelters, addictions and mental health, subsidized housing, and 18 of those more than 40 agencies have our fresh food market stands in them. They're in the lobbies of agencies that see a high traffic from folks who might be experiencing hunger. We also have a gleaning component in the harvest season where folks go to farms to harvest what would otherwise go fallow in fields and have that delivered to the same agencies and fresh food market stands. And then the last piece of the food access programs is our, we have a new name for it, the Meetup, is the Meetup, which is a program to make local quality meat more affordable to local agencies. In food skills, and this isn't my specialty, but the 2 main components are community kitchens, which is teaching people in usually series of classes how to cook delicious, affordable, and healthy meals, and using that process to build community as well. The Grow Project school gardens are currently in 10 elementary schools, but expanding to 23 in the next couple of years. And that program teaches elementary school kids about growing food and community and farmers and food systems as well. And then the area of community engagement, as Madison mentioned, the Circles program is our new poverty reduction program that's trying to get more at the root of food insecurity, being that lack of income, and is using a food skills component to bring people together around meals, build community across class lines, and at the same time be supporting them toward goals for self-sufficiency. One of the things that we believe pretty strongly is that everybody deserves good food. So we focus on fresh and healthy food, and what that looks like in our fresh food delivery program is trying to increase the amount available today for people to eat. Though, because we know that the root of food insecurity at the household level, the reason that people don't know where their next meal is coming from, is not a lack of food, it's a lack of income. And so we have other programs that are working across the spectrum to try and, of sort of areas of creating change, leverage points for change, to do poverty reduction work. Yeah, so since the root of food insecurity at the household level is a lack of income, not a lack of food, our poverty reduction program is one that we're really excited about for being able to create change at a more systemic and long-term level, whereas the fresh food delivery is really trying to create more access to healthy food today, but it's not serving any long-term, solving any long-term issues of poverty or household food insecurity.
Can you speak about the issue of conflating the two that you were speaking about earlier?
Yeah.
And how people tend to do that?
I think it's tempting because it seems so tidy to say, well, there's surplus waste, or there's surplus food from grocery stores, and there are people who lack food. So it's really tempting to see those as perfect puzzle pieces, that by reducing one, you reduce the other, and the problem is dealt with. But if you look a little deeper at the actual causes of the reason that people are experiencing hunger, it's not because grocery stores are throwing out their food, it's because they can't afford it. And so having a solution that gives them fresh food for free is very helpful today, but it's not addressing the root of that issue, which is that they are living in poverty. There's a risk that decision makers might be let off the hook for doing something to truly address poverty, because they're instead doing something easier to address food waste.
It's a temporary, short-term solution.
Yeah. And not that it shouldn't be done. It should, definitely. But it shouldn't be done under the guise of solving poverty. It should be done under the guise of responsible adult behavior that reduces environmental waste and does something better with food that has had a lot of resources put into it. You know, it shouldn't end up in the landfill, definitely. Because we're coming at this from the perspective of there happens to be a surplus of fresh, healthy food in our community from grocery stores and restaurants and farmers because of the cost of doing business. It's unavoidable. There are ways to reduce it, definitely, but at the moment there's a lot that is either going into the dumpster or to pig farmers. And we're coming at it from trying to increase access to healthy food today for people experiencing hunger, and therefore trying to take advantage of that surplus. Yeah, I think one of the amazing things about our fresh food market stands is in an attempt to make fresh food access easier and more direct. The food gets put there for anybody to take. And what we've heard is there was one woman who said that she has a friend who would never go to a meal program or a food bank because there's so much stigma associated with it and a lot of shame, but was totally happy to come to the market stand, and she was like teaching him what zucchini was, and it was his only source of produce. And we've heard from a lot of different people actually, and Madison did her master's on the topic at Queen's, that the lack of produce that we thought we were trying to kind of augment for people experiencing hunger, we were actually creating a source that didn't exist. Yeah, which I think speaks, I mean, it's really affirming to know that the program is effective, that it's well received, that it's meaningful to people, but it's also a pretty big reality check about the extent of the problem, if that's really their only source of produce.
So my name is Pat Jocelyn. I'm just recently accepted the position here as Food Rescue Coordinator, and that's for foodrescue.ca.
So do you want to speak a bit about what foodrescue.ca is?
So yeah, foodrescue.ca it's the first of its kind. It's an online platform, so it runs on, it's a website, not an app, so it can run on any device, computer, mobile, tablet. And once you become a member, and so members can consist of food businesses as well as social service agencies, then you are put up on this platform, and donors, food businesses, can put extra surplus food up on the platform, and local agencies would be able to accept it, be notified and accept this food. With a lot of food businesses now, food waste is something that's addressed quite seriously. So like zero waste, zero impact, especially at restaurants, hotels, they're mandated to limit waste, because it's not great for the environment, but also it's expensive to deal with waste. So we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from them, as well a lot of people in the community, local restaurateurs want to support their community, and a lot of them do in other ways as well. But being able to reduce food waste and having that food go to feed hungry members of their community is also, they love doing it. The only people that can become members of foodrescue.ca are food businesses and registered not-for-profit charitable organizations. That way we're ensuring that to the donors who are putting this food up, that it's going to go to an agency that is going to respect it, right? And all of the agencies on this platform will be needed to be health inspected, so that on both ends the food is treated fairly and respectfully, that no one's going to get sick or hurt in the process, right? Because the whole idea is that there are hungry people, but they should be treated just like everyone else, right? With safe, healthy food.
And how have you noticed it starting to take off?
So it has just started. This is the first of its kind. The website launched on Wednesday, 2 days ago, and it is to go live the end of March. So right now we are currently just registering people to get on the platform, and we should be exchanging food by the end of March. So it's quite exciting. It's brand new. So it's not replacing anything that Loving Spoonful currently does. Their programs are doing wonderful things. What foodrescue.ca is going to allow is for these smaller donations that aren't always logistically easy to pick up, small amounts of soup or bread that once before wouldn't be picked up can now be exchanged directly. The other thing that's interesting about foodrescue.ca as opposed to a lot of food reclamation, food rescue programs is that it's a direct connection between the agency and the donor. So there is no one in between. Like right now, Loving Spoonful kind of acts as the middleman. They collect all this food and then are able to distribute it through our streams, which is fantastic. Foodrescue.ca is putting the responsibility on the agency to go and collect the food directly from the donor, which is great because you're going to start to see these connections that didn't exist before between local food businesses and local agencies.
Like, food is universal. You're never going to have a situation where you won't need food or you're not going to want food. So if you're bringing in food with a purpose, like, that just can get people really excited and ready to start the ball rolling. When we get together, we do try and spark conversations too. We're not just getting, we do have fun and we cook together, there's music playing, but we're also trying to spark a conversation. So how are there ways for you to not waste food at home? So one person the other week said, oh, well, we have a bucket at the top shelf of our fridge, so all the food that's going to go bad and it's starting to turn, we put it there so that it's used first. So people are already starting to be like, oh, well, I don't want to waste my food anymore. You are going to the grocery store and you buy 5 bags of groceries and you leave with 3 because you're automatically just throwing out 2 when you go home and you're not eating the food properly or in a time efficient manner. And it's just, like I said, like there's financial, environmental, and like social impacts that this has. So, you know, some people might see it as a way of saving money. If you're wasting less food, you're saving money. Some people might see it as an environmental factor. If you're not throwing it out, it's not going to the landfills, and it's not creating greenhouse gases, because organic matter in landfills is actually releasing methane. If you know that there's an issue, speak up about it, right? You know, talk to your friends, talk to your families, get the facts, get the figures, show them a food waste documentary, or just, if you really want to, go to a grocery store and look in their dumpster, and you will be shocked to see how much food, fresh food, is in there, and that could probably still be eaten. It's just not sellable anymore. They could go a step further, and they could actually start talking to the legislators. So, you know, people that are making policies that we're in the capital city, right? Like, you could start talking to your policymakers about what goes on with food waste, right? Because it's not just gonna stop now if we're just, oh, okay, everyone's gonna go into the dumpster and get their groceries that way, because it's not going to work like that. You have to do some micro and macro actions in order to see a change occur, and that's what PRD is doing, right? We're impacting, I would say, every week we're getting 60 to 70 people.
Every time that somebody comes to PRD and is new to PRD, they always ask us, like, oh, what's going on? Because they just see a bunch of ridiculous happy people cooking and like a bunch of food lying around. So I always like the shock on their faces when they're like, you tell them, oh yeah, this food, it could have ended up in the garbage, and they're like, oh, okay. Most people don't see it, you know, they kind of hear about it, but until you actually visualize it and you see it in person makes a big difference. At that point, they really internalize that this is a problem.
Yeah, I love PRD because it's an amazing way to like save food, share food, and know how to cook cruelty-free food, and it's just like bring people together, and it's just an amazing way to start your Wednesday.
I am not afraid of food that is a little bit not perfect, because I used to throw things out, sounds bad to say, but when they were just like on the verge of being bad, even if they're not bad. Also, when I go to throw something out, I think more like what it could have made if I didn't. Because when you see it all piled together, like this that I'm holding, like all of this could have been in the garbage. But when you see it all put together on a buffet that you'll see later, but like this whole buffet that we have, and you see what it could have become, it makes it harder to throw things away.
Hi, I'm Orion, and I'm new in PRD. I decided to come because I first thought it was a great idea to take kind of old food and not wasting it and cooking it together in a great, well, with nice people all together. So yeah, that's basically why I came, and I do not regret it because it turns out that people are really fun, and we're cooking great things, eating well too.
Hi, I'm Victor, and I love PRD first because we are against food waste and all inclusive any kind of food, but we mostly cook vegan food, which I like, and we meet every other week, and we have a lot of fun together. We meet new people, we're making so yummy food. Look at this salad, how it looks so good, and I'm really happy each time I come here. It's like a pause that I'm taking of my homework and my classes, and yeah, you should come to PRD once to see the mood and the ambiance, what it looks like. Yeah.
I like that PRD has got me to think about how food affects my life, how it has really deep social and economic implications. Also, it's gotten me to pick up some really good sustainable habits, which I'm happy about. But most of all, PRD is really fun.
So people have started to learn, okay, if I bring my container to this spot, I'm gonna eat. So it's really wonderful once we put the sign out, because we get a lineup of people just coming in and they're chatting, and so myself or whoever else is interested at that time takes a moment to say, okay, before we're eating, we'd like to talk to you about how this works. Because a lot of people are like, cool, free food, that's great, bye. And, you know, we're not asking them to do anything except to listen. So we give our spiel. We say how we work and why it's important. And we, you know, just start to try and get the conversation going about food waste and how these people could be impacting the food waste problem at their own homes or in their own social settings, in clubs. On campus, there's a lot of food waste that goes on too, so it really is just sparking the conversation. And then once we chat about it, we let people fill up their containers and they get to see the beautiful creations we've made, and then we sit down and eat. And then you just have this sense of like pride, because it's like, you know, when you see the first step of all the fruits and vegetables laid out and you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with that, and then you finally see the final product of people sharing this warm meal together in this accepting setting. It's like, okay, like this is what we do it for, right? Like this is what keeping campus delicious is about.
So we try to apply it to the customer side. So we offer package-free products, but we also try to apply it to our supply chain. So if you see the products that we get, if you want to turn around, so these are the cleaning products that we get in those big jugs. So we fill them into our refill station. So that's the back of the refill station here. That is connected to a compressor. The compressor sort of puts pressure in this so that it flows smoothly on the other side. And once these jugs are empty, they go back to the supplier, who clean them, reuse them, refill them, and bring them back to us. So here you have a concept that is a complete closed concept, or we say a circular economy, where absolutely nothing gets wasted. This thing is just perfection in terms of zero waste principle. You know? This is coffee, for example. Our coffee comes into, so that's maple syrup, same thing, goes back to the supplier. Coffee comes in those buckets, you know? It's a local roastery. Delivers the coffee here, we fill it in our dispensers, and this goes back to the supplier, reuses, completely zero waste. Same thing for the maple syrup, so this goes back to the supplier. You can see the chocolate here, for example. This goes back to the supplier, so we have another good example here. And then if you look at the rest of the packaging, we try as much as possible going with paper, you know, so we stay away from the plastic. There's very few plastic when you look at it. It's all either paper or cardboard. So we actually have very, very little waste that comes out of food waste that comes out of our operations. We always try actually to capture the product before it gets bad and do something with it. So that's really a principle that we apply to all our fruits and vegetables, all our produce. So first step would be, well, there are different steps actually. The product is, I will say, produce is the area where you have the most waste, so I'll focus on this one. If I look at produce, if I feel that, okay, this is getting tired, we call them tired fruits and vegetables, first thing we do is we discount them. So we put them 20% off, 50% off, so to make sure that maybe someone will be happy to buy them for 50% less. If we still don't sell them, the next step will be to process them. So we would can them, we would juice them, we would make prepared foods out of them, so salads, or we have a refrigerated section, and so every now and then we have a chef who comes in, and if we have big amounts of foods, she will just process it. She will just create recipes from scratch, and so she'll have, I don't know, a quinoa salad with whatever vegetables that are left that day. So really create it from scratch. And then the last step would be, if we still have something, we will donate it to Parkdale Foods, which is just across around the corner. The zero waste lifestyle and zero waste shopping, to me, is part of a movement that is really trying to reinvent consumption and reinvent consumerism. So you're pretty young, but my generation, you know, Generation X, we really grew up with mass consumerism. We know nothing else. So we grew up, you buy, it breaks, you throw it away, you buy something else. You know, we've just been trained with a disposable generation. Everything's disposable in my generation. And I think we need to operate a shift where we reconsider the way we consume and become more mindful and more responsible consumers. And by doing so, we're not just going to fix the problem of waste. We're going to address climate change, which is the overarching issue of our times, right? I mean, we're going to fix so many problems by becoming different consumers. So really, what does that mean, a responsible consumer? It's a consumer who thinks about the products they buy and sees the story behind a product. So if I buy a product, you know, I try to think, okay, where does it come from? Where was it produced? Was it produced sustainably by people earning a fair wage? Now that I have this product, what's its footprint? You know, does it consume a lot of energy to operate? Is it wasteful? Once I'm done using it, what happens to it? Can I give it to someone else for reuse? Can I repurpose it? Can I recycle it? Last resort, recycle it. You know, or does it just end up in a landfill and forever and ever? You know. So it's really trying to have a more holistic approach on the things we buy, and just be smarter buyers, you know? Think about the before and the after. And if we do that, I think there's a chance we might save this planet. Yeah. This is I'm gonna juice tomorrow. See, there's a little bit that I need to take off here, but the rest is still can be. You cut off, you know, the bruised parts, and then it's still perfect for juice.
So you juice them if they're...
Yeah, for the fruits, apples typically I'll juice, so I'll mix them with kale or with carrot, ginger, so it makes really nice juices.
Every time you do apple?
So that's the one, that's the carrot, apple, ginger, lemon. Yeah, so that's the fresh juice we did yesterday. And we did, I think, 15 juices, and they're all gone, so...
Our donations from North House Foods. They give us like pre-packaged gluten-free food, and it's expired, but it's been in the freezer the entire time, so it's perfectly fine. We've got our vegetables that were given to us by a couple different health food stores around town. These are our pre-made leftovers that we get from the wild oat. We use those to serve at we kind of just serve them at meetings and things like that, so people can have ready-made food. And then we have lots of bread, which is diverted away from grocery stores since they throw out like huge bags of bread every single day. This stuff is probably getting a little past its prime, but normally every week we get new fresh bread, and we do a grocery giveaway at Carleton where we take all the bread and people can take a whole loaf home with them. So one thing that we do here to lessen our environmental footprint is we collect takeout containers, like from all over the place. People bring them, like literally if someone gets a takeout lunch, they'll just bring it in after. We wash them all, and then we use them at takeout containers at servings, rather than having to actually buy takeout things. So we managed to be completely self-sufficient using recycled takeout containers.
So beyond it just being about food waste, it's also, are you trying to limit waste in general here?
Yeah, everything we do, we try and like limit waste and look at it with like a sustainable bent, because yeah, super important.
Make it more attractive.
So what are you making?
So we got here is simple onion, mushroom, asparagus saute. Great recipe whenever you're bored. Is onions fried in oil, add some mushrooms, salt, cumin, coriander, black pepper. Eat it with bread, it's like a complete meal. And if you want to get more complex, you can add whatever else you have. Today we had a lot of asparagus, so I threw some asparagus. It doesn't look super pretty, but it tastes freaking amazing. So we currently live in a society and civilization that produces enormous amounts of waste, and at the same time, hundreds of thousands of people are hungry and are poor and can't afford to pay for their basic needs. What we would like to enact in our local community and in the city and reaching out to the entire country is practices within business and government regulation that promote anti-food waste measures. So whether it's corporations donating to their employees or distribution channels between food sellers, grocers, and food banks, anything to lessen the impact of the absurd amount of waste that we have is what we'd like. And our ideal would be a world where, or at least a country or a city where nobody is hungry and food is a secure aspect of everybody's lives, where nobody is food insecure. And we definitely have the amount of food to handle that. It's just a matter of distribution. And our role right now is in the distribution. And beyond that, it's developing the practices for that distribution to reach out beyond just the Carleton community.
There's so many things. There's so many things that can be done. In terms of, okay, we'll start at like the grocery store level. There's that idea that grocery stores need to be constantly stocked. This goes past like just food waste on a sustainability level to not have food that's grown far. That's just really unsustainable to have oranges in like December. But besides that, it's just not overstocking. So I'm sure grocery stores understand how much they're going to sell. Like they have a certain amount of bananas that usually sell. It's this idea that they have to constantly overstock because then it looks good. And then if there's that last banana left, oh my God, what's wrong with that banana? Nobody's gonna buy that banana. So they constantly just overstock their shelves. So if they prevent that practice, instead ordering less food, they'll have less waste. Then you get into the whole farming of every type of food. I believe it was like a third of food was thrown out because it didn't look good. So there's also that idea that food needs to look good, and it's both on the part of the producers and the people buying the food. There needs to be a shift in the idea that food needs to look perfectly polished, not a bruise on it, because then that'll reflect back into the production chain, and the producers will understand that, like, okay, this banana is an inch shorter than that one, that's okay.
These are some of our community gardens. We did a trolley tour of all the community gardens last year and took everyone around to different ones to kind of see them. We have 38, yeah, quite a few. We're always trying to look at how to make things better, so building it so we can kind of increase access, not just for folks who actually, might have time and money to garden, but we're trying to make it actually accessible to everyone.
I'm Madison Hainstock, and I'm going to be the community programs manager for Loving Spoonful while Lilith Wyatt's on leave, and I'm very excited about that. It's going to be fun. I finished my master's 2017, so very recently, at Queen's, and I spoke to people experiencing homelessness about their transition into housing around food, so how they went from shelters and hot meal programs and that geography kind of survival, and then going to having your own kitchen and how that experience was. Yeah, it was a fascinating project, and actually that's how I used to volunteer a lot with Loving Spoonful, and but what came up a lot in my project, which kind of really got me really interested in working with everyone here, was that basically everyone I spoke to talked about those fresh food market stands, about being that one of the only places that they could actually access fresh produce, again, in a way that was not at all undignified. People could just walk in, and they actually went to a lot of places that they wouldn't have otherwise, just to go get produce. Loving Spoonful specifically only picks up food that matches our healthy, safe food donation guidelines. So primarily, we don't want to just increase access to any kind of food. We know that there's a lot of food out there that is affordable but not good or healthy. So what we're trying to do through this program is increase access to what people actually normally can't access. What folks mentioned with these fresh food market stands is that you don't, like Lil said, you don't have to prove your need. Like, you don't have to tell people your income. You don't have to sign up on a piece of paper. You don't have to tell anyone your name. And we've located them in places that people are already going because they might be accessing those services, or they might be just walking by. Like, they don't have to say that they're in need, but they're just there, and you can just walk up. I've taken food home off of fresh food market stands when I was volunteering, just because it's good food, and it's just so sad that we throw it out because it's not inedible, it's not bad, it's just that there's a weird thing in our food system that somehow this stuff is just not deemed as enough. I think a lot of folks really appreciate the fresh food market stands because they don't have to do anything other than just pick it up and go. And that for us is, in terms of increasing access to healthy food, like, it's a milestone. So for agencies, it actually brings people in their doors, big people that wouldn't otherwise. And again, it's because they don't have to ask any questions. You don't have to say anything. It's and people get really excited and really happy and they're empty within an hour of us dropping off food. And so we know the need is there, and also everyone deserves good and healthy food, no matter what. The cost of healthy food, the cost of a watermelon, the cost of apples, those are all just higher than the cost of a box of cookies. Or Mara has this great thing now, one red pepper is the same price as 3 boxes of macaroni. If you're hungry, you're not gonna buy a red pepper, you're gonna get 3 boxes of macaroni. And we don't judge people for that. If they have to feed their kids and that's what they can afford, then buy it and feed your kids. But if we can help you get a fresh pepper in there too, and it's just going to get thrown out otherwise, then yeah, we're going to definitely step in there and make sure that happens. And we still get calls about getting more market stands in new places. We started moving into transitional housing recently, which has been really cool. But the thing is, we can't really increase how many more market stands we have. 18 is already quite a few, but we can't do that until we start getting more donated. So once we get more donations from our local grocery stores, then we can start putting them in more places. So we're really excited about that expansion, actually, for that reason.
So I'm Alexandra Harper. I'm the food access animator at Loving Spoonful. So it's my job. I coordinate the volunteers to go pick up food at different donors and drop them off at different recipient agencies, and just organizing all that kind of stuff and answering calls. When we had a call this week where a man, a gardener, he has a plot at one of the community gardens. He's like, I have 800 pounds of processed frozen tomatoes. Like, I'd like to donate them to be distributed, and, you know, organizing that kind of stuff, which is, they're always fun phone calls to get. So yeah, that's what I do.
How many volunteers do you have working?
There's probably around 100 registered. There's like definitely a core group of, you know, 20 or so that do routes once or twice a week, and two, I know, like, I've got a handful of volunteers who I know I can call and text kind of last minute, and they'll be like, yeah, absolutely, I'll be there, and that's amazing. And
and how many agencies do you have registered? Do you know the vague number?
Between like 50 and 56, I think. We have 18 fresh food market stands. So those are market stands that we've built, and they're just like wooden structures, and our volunteers pick up food and they bring them to them, and they just put them out, and they're free for anyone who walks by to access, and there's no, you know, having to prove your poverty or prove your hunger. It's kind of breaking down the barriers to people accessing food. It's probably at least like 15 to 20 different donors. We have ones that donate every day of the week, which is amazing. We have ones that, you know, donate once or twice a week, and then there's ones that are on our list that will just call us when they have, you know, extra soup or extra whatever from an event they did, and
so it can be spontaneous.
Yeah. A lot of what I do is figuring out those spontaneous phone calls, which is really fun. How the volunteers do it is you weigh yourself, and then you like pick up the bag, and then like do the math and do the difference. So this one's 10 pounds. Great. So we got we can look. So we got a bunch of bagels in this one, which is great. They look beautiful, and yeah, so they're just day old, so they're perfectly fine. Like, you know, they just aren't at the top quality for what they need to sell every day. So obviously, like, I would eat them, and that's the whole idea with Loving Spoonful, is we only pick up food that we ourselves would eat or feed our families. So obviously I would eat these. They're only a day old, and this one was 20 pounds, so that's great. We just picked up a donation of 75 pounds of bread products, and we're about to start to deliver them and distribute them to different agencies across Kingston. So this is a regular route that happens every Saturday at this time. So we've created routes based on who's open and at what time. So there are different routes every day. So I think on Saturday there's 4 routes. So, you know, there's 4 volunteers out in their cars picking up from different grocery stores and restaurants and distributing the food all across Kingston, which is great. And so there's a mix of fresh produce and bread products like this, and
What are the kind of places that you distribute to?
So a lot of social service agencies, and like some halfway houses, some houses that host people with like mental illnesses who are in the process of, you know, kind of getting their life back on track. A lot of youth shelters, like the big shelters like the Gathering Place and Martha's Table, who just provide hot meal programs. Some church groups that provide a daily hot meal program. Like elementary school and high school, you know, you do food drives for the food bank, and they're, you know, they'd have incentives for you to like bring in more food and like competition between classes. And, you know, I remember myself and a lot of other people just bringing in like so many packages of Mr. Noodles. It's like those provide no nutritional value. There's nothing good in them. It's just empty calories. So it's like, why are we? Ooh, we're here. It's about that, like, you know, people deserve food that is healthy and good for them and meets their nutritional requirements and actually keeps them full and is culturally appropriate, not just Mr. Noodles. Like, I feel like that's such a thing that the food bank might face as an issue, like just receiving kind of empty calorie foods like that rather than good, nutritious, healthy food. It's definitely a problem that I think North America is definitely facing, whereas, like, you know, we believe our food at the grocery store is supposed to look perfect, and like, hello, this looks perfect, but they can't sell it for whatever reason, because maybe it's a little bit brown here, but I would eat that in my home and I would feed it to my kids if I had them. And it's definitely a matter of like changing the shift of how we view food and what is good food. And yeah, just because it's not the perfect shape and size, it's still a perfect tomato kind of thing. Like, these are, you know, very squishy. I wouldn't want to eat these, and I don't think anyone else should. Like, we're not just getting rid of food just to get rid of it. We're giving agencies dignified food that I would eat myself, and it's all about dignity, and I love that word, and I think that you can give someone so much dignity by giving them good food, and that's super, super important. So yeah, we'll leave these ones behind, but I think everything else looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay. That's 20 pounds. So that's 20, 40, that's 60, and then 17. So is that 70? We can say 80. We'll round it up. Yeah, it definitely gets busier in the summer because we have the grower project. So we encourage local farmers, and we have a few farmers that donate to us regularly to grow an extra row of produce and donate it to us, and we distribute it. So it picks up a lot in the summer and the fall, obviously, when all that stuff is getting harvested. We also do the gleaning, so we go into farmers' fields who, you know, they don't have time or whatever to pick the rest of, you know, the apples or the squash or the whatever, and we go in with a team of volunteers and pick it all and distribute it, and, you know, like, that's when we end up with the, you know, 1,500 pounds of squash, and everybody gets squash for like 2 weeks. We have donors that we pick up from 5 days a week, and it's like over 150 pounds every time. It's like pretty outrageous to see and to think that, oh, well, like, what was happening just before? Like, oh, it's probably just getting thrown in the dumpster out back. And so yeah, the Loving Spoonful is actually 10 this year, and it started with just one woman just driving around in her car, going to grocery stores and asking them for their extra food, and that's really how the whole thing started. And now we have all these like great different programs, and like we have this program that is still happening 10 years later, but it's just a bit more organized, and it's huge, which is really awesome. And yeah, it's like kind of an honor to be running the program that really started it all.
Hey, I didn't dumpster dive this, but some friends did. Got a bunch of stuff from a local grocer filled with bananas, bread, fresh fruits and vegetables. Not all of it is perfect. Here we got a big moldy thing of bagels, so we're just gonna toss that. I go like once every 2 weeks. Like, one haul will feed me and my siblings for at least 2 weeks. Organic food is often thrown away, more so than the regular stuff, so we got this very expensive tomatoes. Basically, it's like living in luxury without having to pay for it. It's pretty lovely.
Oh, well, I am sorting through our dumpster dive goods to figure out which ones I want to take home for myself. So I'm gonna take these bananas. I'm gonna take this head of lettuce. Ooh, there's pepper. As always, there's a million potatoes, but I already have that at home. Yeah, no, I've managed to replace like at least half my diet with this food, which is awesome because I'm bored.
And what were the motivations for you to go downstairs?
Well, I always wanted to. I like trash. I'm very passionate about trash. And then also, I don't like seeing food go to waste. It seems very stupid to me. And I also hate our corporate masters that force us to eat food that comes at a ridiculous price. And this is a way to give them the middle finger.
I want to know about the legality of it, or like why this is happening, why it's being donated, or like why it's illegal to dumpster dive, all these kind of questions.
Well, the main reason is just that corporations are like, oh, you know, if we destroy everything that we don't sell, then we never have to even be concerned about liability. And they sort of like believe slash like spread these ideas that like expired food or food like this is like inherently unhealthy, or like the risk of food contamination means like all of this should just be in the garbage. But in fact, like I just feel like the laws are really muddy. They're constantly changing, and there's like bylaws that go against provincial law and vice versa. So for the most part, I feel like it's just kind of the Wild West, and like I'm sure there's some lawyers out there that are like perfectly familiar with the laws, but I've never met anyone who has a clear sense of what is legal and what is illegal. But yeah, no, Farm Boy, the one that opened like in the mall, they, before they even opened, set up like a food diversion program to the shelter. So I mean, they're like a good business that like planned correctly for their food waste.
1999, there was the Food Donor Act, which brings into the picture liability. Because a lot of corporations, or when you go to a grocery store and say, hey, what do you do with your food that's you can't sell anymore? They say, we throw it out. You say, why? Why don't you donate it to someone? It's illegal. It's not illegal. There is this Food Donor Act that is in place that says if you are giving food away as a charitable act, then you're clear. No one can turn around and sue you. Yeah, no, so they will not donate. And you know, there's this alternate trend of dumpster diving that is seen worldwide, and people, you know, after hours go and get the food, and, you know, they put on their gloves, they get their flashlights, and they go in the dumpsters, and they're getting free food. I actually had a roommate that helped us out with that. So last year, I would say on a month, for 6 people that were living there, we spent maybe $60 on groceries a month. Because she was able to get everything. I am celiac, I can't eat gluten. There's a bakery down the road on Rideau, and I got it. I got bread, I got, you know, dumplings, whatever. And she would get fruits and vegetables and other things, cheese, and you would think, oh my gosh, why are you eating cheese from a dumpster? It was not expired. The package was dent. The package had a dent, and it's unsellable. They're only available at grocery stores that are much smaller because the larger corporations lock their dumpsters. So I took it upon myself to make a Facebook group, which was just kind of meant for myself and my friends to be used as a way to talk about food. So whether that be posting articles of different food related sources, or different recipes you could share, or cool zero waste initiatives going on around the world. But it actually also started turning into a food sharing page, which was really cool. So we have people that were really avid dumpster divers, except they realized that the food they were getting was so much that they couldn't eat it all, right? Like it was already getting to be bad, and so they would just say, hey, we're going diving, anyone want to come? Join us. So it was turning into this social hub of, you know, dumpster divers and foodies everywhere. So in the summer of 2015, like, if I couldn't go dumpster diving, I knew someone else was, and we would just meet up. And we would just say, okay, here's that. And I actually I put a fridge outside on my porch, and we would just say, if people want to leave the food there, they can, and then people can come and pick it up. And it was pretty much like a community fridge. The food movement, which is a Facebook group I made, is just this way for people to connect and to dialogue, because again, like the importance for me and food is, you know, the connection. You know, you're not just here to be eating alone, right? Like you're sharing a meal with people, you're sharing insight with people about different recipes you have or different tricks and skills you have. And so we were taking the ideas of PRD, of sharing food that would otherwise be wasted, and sharing knowledge, and then just putting it in another domain. So if people are interested, they can check out PRD, which happens every Wednesdays at 9 a.m. on campus, and we serve around 11:30, or they can go to the food movement on Facebook. This is my computer.
This summer, and I'm pretty sure that we talked about
it. Because I have no experience like movies and cinema and theater and
What's your name?
Yeah.
This is your only responsibility. This is